New mask, same task. When Robert Downey Jr. was announced as Dr. Doom at SDCC 2024, he didn't just reveal the mask and walk off stage. He said 4 very specific words that sent the entire fandom into theorizing overdrive.
New mask, same task.
Let that sink in for a moment. Not new character, new role. Not a completely different person. New mask, same task. This wasn't a throwaway line. This was Robert Downey Jr. telling us something. Because if Doom is a completely separate character with no connection to Tony Stark, why would the task be the same? What task? Tony Stark's mission throughout the Infinity Saga was protecting the world at all costs. He built the Iron Man armor to stop terrorists. He created Ultron to put a suit of armor around the world. He fought Captain America because he believed in accountability and preventing future threats. And he ultimately sacrificed his life to stop Thanos. That was his task. Protection, security, control. Now look at Dr. Doom in the comics. Doom's entire motivation is protecting Latveria and bringing order to the world through his rule. He sees himself as the only one capable of saving humanity from itself. He's not a villain in his own mind. He's a protector, a savior, someone willing to do what others won't to achieve peace. Sound familiar? The parallels are impossible to ignore. Tony and Doom are both genius billionaires who believe they alone have the vision and capability to save the world. They both use advanced technology, they both wear masks, they both struggle with ego and control, and they both see themselves as heroes, even when their methods cross moral lines. New mask, same task. It's not a coincidence, it's a promise. Downey is telling us that whoever this Dr. Doom is, he shares Tony Stark's fundamental mission. And if that's true, then the line between hero and villain becomes terrifyingly thin. The mask changes. But the man underneath, his core drive, his task, that remains the same. This is the foundation of every theory that follows, because if the task is the same, then maybe the man is too. The Russo brothers confirm Tony's death is connected to Doom. In March 2025, Joe and Anthony Russo gave an interview to The Times that changed everything. The reporters asked them a direct question. How can Robert Downey Jr. return as Dr. Doom after Tony Stark died in Endgame? Anthony Russo's answer was chilling. We can't explain that as it's part of the story, but there's nobody else in the world who could play this character the way he's about to. Read that again. We can't explain that as it's part of the story. The Russos aren't saying Doom is unrelated to Tony. They're saying the connection is so integral to the plot of Doomsday that revealing it would spoil the entire film. If Doom and Tony were completely separate characters with no narrative connection, the Russos could have just said Robert is playing a different character, end of story. But they didn't. They confirmed that Tony Stark's death in Endgame is directly connected to Dr. Doom's arrival in Doomsday. This isn't fan speculation. This is the directors of the movie explicitly telling us that these two characters are linked. The question is how. Some theories suggest Doom is possessing Tony's corpse using magic. Others believe Doom is a Tony Stark variant from another universe who made different choices. Some think Tony was always Doom, and his heroic persona was a facade or manipulation. But regardless of which theory is correct, one thing is certain. The Russos have confirmed that Tony Stark and Dr. Doom are not separate entities in the MCU. Their fates are intertwined. And when you combine this with Downey's new mask, same task comment, a pattern emerges. The mask changed when Tony died, but the task, the mission, the man behind it, that continues. In another form, with another name, Dr. Doom. The adoption theory, one of the most popular and well-researched theories circulating online, suggests that the Tony Stark we've been watching since 2008 was actually Victor Von Doom all along. Born in Latveria, adopted by Howard and Maria Stark, and raised as Tony Stark without ever knowing his true origins. This isn't random speculation, it's based on actual Marvel Comics canon. In the 2012 Iron Man comic run, it was revealed that Tony Stark was adopted by Howard and Maria Stark. This was a major storyline that introduced Arno Stark, Howard's biological son who had been hidden away due to illness. Tony, in the comics, learned that he wasn't the biological heir to the Stark legacy. He was adopted. And if the MCU adapts this twist, it opens the door for something massive. What if the baby Howard and Maria adopted wasn't just any orphan? What if it was Victor Von Doom? The theory suggests that in the MCU's Earth 616, Victor Von Doom's parents were killed when he was an infant, possibly during a conflict in Latveria or during one of Howard Stark's business dealings in Eastern Europe. Howard and Maria, who were struggling to have children, adopted the baby and named him Tony. Meanwhile, in another universe, the Fantastic Four's universe, Victor was raised by his actual family and became Dr. Doom. This explains why Robert Downey Jr. plays both characters. They're not variants in the traditional sense. They're the same person who was raised in two completely different circumstances. In one reality, Victor was adopted by the Starks and became a hero. In another, he was raised in Latveria and became a villain. The theory gains even more weight when you consider the timeline. The first Avengers Doomsday teaser countdown ended on May 29th. And guess what? May 29th is Tony Stark's birthday in the MCU. That's not a coincidence. Marvel is telling us that Tony's birth, his origin, is directly connected to Doom's story. This theory also explains the new mask, same task comment. If Tony was always Victor Von Doom genetically, then the task was never about being Iron Man specifically. It was about a brilliant, damaged individual trying to control and protect the world through technology and willpower. The Stark upbringing made him a hero, but the Doom DNA was always there. And now, with the multiverse colliding, Victor Von Doom from another reality sees his alternate self, the one who became Iron Man, the one who was celebrated and loved, and he wants that. Or he wants to destroy it. Or he wants to prove that his path, the Doom path, was always the correct one. This theory doesn't just explain the casting, it recontextualizes Tony's entire arc. Every moment of arrogance, every time he believed he was the only one who could save the world, every instance where he pushed boundaries and ignored consequences, that wasn't just Tony Stark being Tony Stark, that was Victor Von Doom's nature bleeding through. Tony's confused reaction in Endgame's time heist. There's a scene in Avengers Endgame that fans have been dissecting for years. When Tony travels back to 1970 and encounters his father Howard at Camp Lehigh, he witnesses something that shakes him.
My wife's expecting, and too much time at the office.
Tony's reaction is strange. He looks genuinely surprised, confused, almost as if he's processing information that doesn't quite match what he believed about his own origins. Some fans dismiss this as Tony simply being emotional about seeing his father before he was born. But what if it's more than that? What if Tony was surprised because he knew, on some level, that Maria wasn't actually pregnant with him? What if he was surprised because he was remembering something that didn't fit his established history? The writers of Endgame have stated that Tony's reaction was meant to show him coming to terms with his father's humanity. But theories persist that there's more to this scene. If Tony was adopted, if he was born Victor Von Doom and placed with the Starks shortly after birth, then Maria would not have been visibly pregnant with him. Tony's confusion in this scene could be the first crack in his understanding of his own identity. The theory suggests that Tony never knew he was adopted. Howard and Maria kept it a secret. But seeing his father in 1970, hearing him talk about the pregnancy, something didn't add up, and maybe, just maybe, that dissonance planted a seed. A question that Tony never fully explored before his death. Who am I really? The scene takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. Tony isn't just meeting his father, he's confronting a lie, a fundamental truth about his existence that was hidden from him his entire life. And now, in Doomsday, when Victor Von Doom arrives, that truth will finally be revealed. Doctor Strange saw only one future where Tony had to die. In Infinity War, Doctor Strange looked into 14,605 possible futures, and in only one did the Avengers defeat Thanos. That future required Tony Stark to sacrifice himself. But what if Doctor Strange saw something else in those futures? What if he saw that in every timeline where Tony Stark lives past Endgame, he becomes something worse than Thanos? This is where the theory gets dark. Doctor Strange is one of the most powerful sorcerers in the MCU. He has access to knowledge beyond time and space, and some fans believe that when he looked into the future, he didn't just see the one way to beat Thanos, he saw the many ways Tony Stark could destroy the universe if he survived. Consider Tony's trajectory. Every film showed him becoming more controlling, more paranoid, more willing to make unilateral decisions for the greater good. He created Ultron without consulting anyone. He signed the Sokovia Accords and fought his closest friends. He built world-ending technology and kept it secret. He was one bad day away from becoming a villain himself. Now imagine Tony Stark with infinite power, with access to the Infinity Stones, with the ability to reshape reality itself. What would he do? Tony believed he alone could save the world. He believed his vision was the only correct path, and if he had unlimited power, he would impose that vision on everyone. That's not a hero, that's a dictator. That's Doctor Doom. The theory suggests that Doctor Strange saw this. He saw timelines where Tony used the Infinity Stones and survived, and in every one of those timelines, Tony became Doom, a well-intentioned tyrant who destroyed the universe trying to save it. So, Strange manipulated events to ensure Tony would die. The only way to defeat Thanos and prevent Doom was to make sure Tony sacrificed himself using the stones. The Demon in an Armor comic precedent. In 2010, Marvel published a one-shot comic called What If Iron Man Demon in an Armor? And it might be the blueprint for everything happening in Avengers Doomsday. The story is simple but devastating. During an experiment, Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom's minds are swapped. Tony wakes up in Doom's body in Latveria, Doom wakes up in Tony's body in Stark Tower. And here's where it gets interesting. Doom, now in Tony's body with access to all of Tony's resources and reputation, uses that position to become more powerful than he ever was as Doom. He has Tony's face, Tony's wealth, Tony's technology, and most importantly, Tony's trust from the superhero community. No one suspects him because he looks like Iron Man. Meanwhile, Tony is trapped in Doom's scarred body, behind Doom's mask, trying to convince the world that he's the real hero. But nobody believes him because he looks like the villain. This comic story is obscure enough that most moviegoers wouldn't know it, but it provides the perfect narrative framework for the MCU to adapt. What if something similar happened in the MCU? What if, at some point, possibly connected to Tony's death and use of the Infinity Stones, something caused a consciousness swap or merge between Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom across universes? What if the Tony we've been watching has Doom's consciousness somewhere inside him? Or what if Doom found a way to inhabit Tony's body after his death? The body swap angle solves multiple problems for Marvel. It explains why RDJ is playing Doom while preserving Tony Stark's heroic legacy. It allows Doom to be comics accurate while justifying the face. And it creates an emotionally devastating storyline where the Avengers have to fight someone who looks and sounds like their fallen friend. The Russo brothers have confirmed they're pulling from multiple comic storylines for Doomsday. Secret Wars is obviously a major inspiration, but Demon in an armor fits perfectly with everything we know. Downey said, "New mask, same task." If Doom is literally wearing Tony's face, that's a new mask in the most literal sense possible. The mask isn't the metal helmet. The mask is Tony Stark's identity, and underneath it's always been Victor Von Doom. Or it became Victor Von Doom after the snap. Tony Stark was always about control, not heroism. Let's talk about Tony Stark's actual character arc across the MCU. Yes, he saved the world. Yes, he sacrificed himself. But if you actually look at his motivations throughout the saga, something becomes very clear. Tony was never about heroism for heroism's sake. He was about control. From the very beginning, Tony's defining trait was his need to be the smartest person in the room, to have all the answers, to fix every problem himself. In Iron Man 1, he doesn't destroy his weapons because he believes in peace. He does it because he realizes his weapons are being used without his control. It's not about morality. It's about control. In Avengers, he flies the nuke through the portal not because he's selfless, but because he sees a threat he can't control from the ground. He has to be the one to handle it. In Age of Ultron, he creates Ultron specifically to take control away from the Avengers and automate global defense. He literally says, "I see a suit of armor around the world." That's not protection. That's dominance. In Civil War, Tony sides with the Sokovia Accords not because he believes in accountability, but because the alternative is chaos he can't manage. When the Avengers refuse to submit to control, he fights his own team. In Endgame, Tony initially refuses to help with the time heist because he's finally achieved control over his own life. He has a daughter, a home, stability, and the moment that control is threatened, he breaks. Every decision Tony makes is driven by the same impulse, the need to control outcomes, to dictate terms, to ensure that he, and only he, has the power to decide what happens next. Now compare that to Dr. Doom. Doom's entire character is defined by his absolute belief that only he is capable of ruling properly. Only he has the vision. Only he has the intelligence. Only he can save the world. Doom doesn't see himself as evil. He sees himself as the only rational actor in a chaotic universe. He rules Latveria with an iron fist because he believes that's what's necessary. He opposes the Fantastic Four not because they're heroes, but because they challenge his control. The Wishbone post. On Thanksgiving 2025, Robert Downey Jr. posted something to Instagram that sent fans into a frenzy. The image showed two hands, one in Iron Man's armor, the other in Dr. Doom's gauntlet, snapping a wishbone in half. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. In American tradition, two people pull opposite ends of a wishbone, and whoever gets the larger piece gets their wish granted. But in Downey's image, the wishbone is already broken. The wish has already been made, and both sides hold a piece. The image is loaded with meaning. The obvious interpretation is that it represents RDJ's dual roles, Iron Man and Dr. Doom. Two characters, two sides of the same actor. But fans immediately notice something deeper, the act of snapping. Tony Stark snapped his fingers to defeat Thanos and save the universe. That snap killed him. The Infinity Stone's energy coursed through his body and burned him from the inside out. He died a hero. But what if that snap did something else? What if it created a connection between Tony and another reality's Victor Von Doom? The wishbone image suggests a split, a fracture. One moment where two destinies diverged. Tony made his wish, "I want to save everyone," and snapped. But in doing so, he broke reality. He split the timeline. And now Dr. Doom, the other half of that wish, has arrived. What if, in the instant before death, Tony Stark made a different wish? What if he wished to survive? And what if that wish, combined with the power of the Infinity Stones, pulled Victor Von Doom's consciousness from another universe into his dying body? If Tony wanted to live badly enough, if he reached out across the multiverse in that final moment, he could have found another version of himself. A version that never became Iron Man. A version that became Doom. And now, that version is here, wearing Tony's face, carrying Tony's burden, completing Tony's task, Because the task never ended. Tony snapped and thought he saved the world, but he only delayed the inevitable. The real threat wasn't Thanos. It was always Doom. It was always the man who believed he alone could control the universe. And that man is here now. The wishbone is broken. The wish is granted. Tony Stark is gone, and in his place stands Victor Von Doom,